Continuing from the previous episode 301. Chapter 1230. Time flies. The arrival of Yao Lao's group had undoubtedly caused the Falling Star Pavilion to become unusually lively. The disciples within the Falling Star Pavilion and even some elders were extremely curious about this pavilion chief that only existed in legend. The Falling Star Pavilion was basically developed by Feng Zun-Jie alone during these years. Even though this was the case, Feng Zun-Jie had also been leaving the spot of the pavilion chief empty. He did not have any intention of sitting on it. This was because he ultimately believed that Yao Lao would sooner or later return to the Falling Star Pavilion. This position was something that he had reserved for Yao Lao. This day had also ultimately arrived like he had anticipated. Hence, after settling the matter of Xiaoyan, he had gathered all the disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion the next day and announced the matter of returning the pavilion chief position. This kind of matter was undoubtedly extremely shocking to the Falling Star Pavilion. In the past, the Falling Star Pavilion had been treating Feng Zun-Jie as the leader. Currently, their true leader was going to change. The disciples below were naturally not very used to it. Fortunately, this unaccustomed manner did not last for very long before it was broken by another excitement. Even these fledgling younger generation did not feel unfamiliar with the name Yao Zun-Jie. Some of the older elders were even filled with wild joy within their hearts. They were extremely experienced and were clearly aware just what kind of position and reputation Yao Lao from back then had in the Central Plains. If one was to really discuss about his reputation and status, it was likely that even the three great heads from the Pill Tower would be slightly inferior. With such a person being the pavilion chief, why would the Falling Star be worried of not being strong? Yao Lao could only smile bitterly in the face of such a situation. However, he did not reject anything this time around. After having experienced the matters that had happened during these years, he also understood that unless one's strength was so great to the point that no one was able to resist one, there would ultimately be quite a big gap between a person and a faction. Back then, he was at a disadvantage in being too free and unfettered. Hence, he ended up being viciously attacked by the Hall of Soul after the latter found an opportunity. Since he possessed the chance to do everything again, he would naturally be unwilling to see this matter repeating itself. Additionally, Xiaoyan would definitely come to a true face-off with the Hall of Soul if he wished to rescue his father. At that time, Xiaoyan would require some factions supporting him from behind. This time around, Xiaoyan had risked death to rescue him. This had caused Yao Lao to place all of his thoughts on this disciple. Currently, he could be considered to be making some prior plans for Xiaoyan. Feng Zun-Jie sighed in relief within his heart when he saw that Yao Lao did not find any excuse to reject the post this time around. He had always thought that the Falling Star Pavilion belonged to Yao Lao in his heart. During these years, he was merely helping the latter manage it. Now that Yao Lao had returned, he would naturally need to return it back. The relationship between him and Yao Lao could be considered to be friends who had undergone life and death together. Feng Zun-Jie was able to search around bitterly for so many years because of Yao Lao. What did a mere pavilion chief position matter? Moreover, he was also extremely clear about Yao Lao's character. He did not specialize in management. At that time, he would still be the one to have a headache over these matters. After settling Xiaoyan down, Feng Zun-Jie and Yao Lao decided to shut the mountain door first because they were afraid of the revenge by the Hall of Soul that could interrupt Xiaoyan's recuperation. With the protection of the Great Falling Star Formation, it was likely that the Hall of Soul would not be able to extend its limbs over. Everything would be discussed after Xiaoyan wakes up. No one objected to the matter of shutting the mountain entrance. Although this realm could not be compared with the Pill Realm, its size was also quite large. There would not be much of a problem staying here for years. Moreover, the energy in this place was dense. The effect of one's training would be many times better than the outside world. Little Fairy Doctor's group naturally chose to remain behind with the mountain entrance shut. Xiaoyan had yet to awaken. How could she leave first? There was similarly no objections to Little Fairy Doctor's group remaining behind. The strength of these people could be considered top level even in the Central Plains. If they could remain in the Falling Star Pavilion, they would undoubtedly greatly strengthen the defense of this place. After the mountain entrance was shut, time also began to quietly flow by amidst this beautiful greenery. 2 months passed within the blink of an eye. Everything was extremely quiet during these 2 months. The expected Hall of Soul revenge did not occur. During this period of time, Feng Zun-jae had also dispatched people to investigate. The Central Plains was still as lively as before. However, there was no news of any big activity from the Hall of Soul. Not even a little news of the branch hall being destroyed was released. Clearly, the Hall of Soul has locked the news. Yao Lao and Feng Zun-jae were surprised at this situation. Given the character of the Hall of Soul, it was impossible for them to endure for so long without taking action. It seemed that there should be something restraining the limbs of the Hall of Soul, causing them to only be able to temporarily place this matter aside. However, the Hall of Soul, not seeking any trouble, also allowed Yao Lao and Feng Zun-jae to sigh in relief. The current Falling Star Pavilion was no match for the Hall of Soul. If they were to begin a war now, the Falling Star Pavilion would end up suffering a serious blow. It would also not be impossible for the Falling Star Pavilion to be unable to recover from it. The Hall of Soul had given them an opportunity to recuperate. Naturally, Yao Lao and the rest did not waste the time. After having recovered some life force, he began to continuously find some of the methods to cause the strength of the Falling Star Pavilion to be strengthened. Time flowed by. Within the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Xiao Yan, who was within the stone tower, still did not show any trace of awakening. However, the originally pale and bloodless face of Xiao Yan had currently gradually become sleek red. His breathing also became normal. He was no longer like a person that was about to die like in the past. All of these indicated that the injuries within Xiao Yan's body was currently gradually recovering. His awakening was only a matter of time. During this 1 month, Little Fairy Doctor's group also took a position of elders within the Falling Star Pavilion after Feng Zun-jae invited them with great effort. Although they were only guest elders, they were at the very least being pulled to the side of the Falling Star Pavilion. Little Fairy Doctor was non-committal towards Feng Zun-jae's attempt to draw her away. Yao Lao was Xiao Yan's teacher. Currently, the former was also the chief of the Falling Star Pavilion. In the future, Xiao Yan might also end up being the pavilion chief of this Falling Star Pavilion. In that case, it did not matter for her to become a nominal elder. Tianhuo Zun-jae also agreed to Feng Zun-jae's invitation after hesitating for a period of time. In any case, there was currently nowhere for him to go. It was also good for him to find a place to settle down. Ziyan was playful in nature. Her agreement with Feng Zun-jae was completely based on her whim. Moreover, with her joining, that Shangzan could only nod his head with her coercing him. Feng Zun-jae and the elders of the Falling Star Pavilion smiled happily in the face of this powerful group joining them. 3 Do-Zun class experts joining them together. This weight was quite a great one. Just this alone would likely cause the Falling Star Pavilion to leap and truly become the top of the 4 pavilions. However, all of them forgotten that should Yao Lao completely recover his peak strength in the future, just his ability to gather people alone would likely cause the Falling Star Pavilion to become quite a strong faction within the entire Central Plains. There was no need to even discuss about the 4 pavilions. Time flowed like water. Spring passed and autumn arrived. A greenish-yellow color was added onto the lush green mountain forest. Half a year's time flowed by without one realizing it. However, Xiao Yan had still yet to wake. Although everyone could sense that the condition within his body was becoming increasingly good, he still did not show any signs of awakening. Even Yao Lao felt somewhat helpless in the face of this scene. The only one who could be relied on regarding this matter was Xiao Yan himself. During this period of time, the back mountain had been labeled as the forbidden ground of the Falling Star Pavilion. Other than Feng Zun-jae's group, even the Falling Star Pavilion's elders were forbidden from entering. This situation naturally attracted the curiosity of all the Falling Star Pavilion disciples. However, after much inquiry, they were only aware that there was a young man called Xiao Yan in the stone tower, who recuperating while undertaking a retreat. Do-Chi Continent Northwestern Region, Jia-Ma Empire, Jia-Ma Sacred City. Any citizen of the Jia-Ma Empire were aware that the true ruler of this empire was no longer the Jia-Ma imperial family. Instead, it was an alliance. This alliance was called the Yan Alliance. Yan, the Yan from Xiao Yan. Every person within the Jia-Ma Empire were aware that the founder of this absolute overlord within the current Jia-Ma Empire was a person called Xiao Yan. He had personally ended a Misty Cloud sect era within the Jia-Ma Empire and began another Yan Alliance era. In the hearts of all the younger generation within the Jia-Ma Empire, this name represented a kind of honor and hard work. This was because everyone were clearly aware that the person who had created this miracle was called a trash back then. There was a grand and towering large hall in the middle of the Jama's sacred city. The large hall was extremely tall. Its top overlooked the entire city. This place was currently the place with the greatest authority within the Jama Empire. At this moment, the top of this heavily guarded large hall was a lady wearing a brilliant robe. She stood with her hands behind her. The figure of this lady was extremely bewitching. Even with the somewhat loose robe, it was still difficult to hide her demon-like curves that would cause one to be attracted. A faint moonlight scattered down from the sky, shining on her beautiful face that would cause one to involuntarily cease breathing. The first impression that this beautiful appearance gave one was a kind of demonic-like bewitching feeling. Her red lips were curled slightly. This arc enchanted everyone. However, there was a kind of pressure from a person of great authority between those narrow brows. An enchanting and majestic feeling coexisted. This caused that charm of hers to instantly reach the peak. At this moment, this lady, who possessed an bewitching appearance that could enchant everyone, was frowning slightly. She raised her head and looked at the bright moon. A skinny figure lingered continuously in her eyes. It has likely been 5 to 6 years. Xiao Yan, you have promised this queen that you will return. If you eat your words, I will tear your corpse into tens of thousands of pieces even if you die. The bewitching lady clenched her hands slightly. A complicated expression flashed over those pretty eyes that were filled with allure. Mother, an unusually tender voice that carried the tone of a baby suddenly sounded from behind this alluring lady while she was softly muttering to herself. The icy cold expression on the face of this bewitching lady immediately disappeared upon hearing this voice. A kind of beautiful smile that even Xiao Yan had never seen before surfaced. After which, she swiftly turned around and looked in the direction that the voice had arrived from. The place where the voice originated from was a flight of stone stairs. At this moment, there was a 2-year-old or so child on her bare little legs. The thing that caused one to feel surprise was that this little child was suspended half an inch from the ground without borrowing any support. Standing in empty air, this was something that only an elite dozong could achieve. That jade carving-like face of the little girl made her appear like an exquisite porcelain doll. It caused only to like her so much to the point of being unable to let her go. A pair of dark black intelligent eyes appeared exceptionally sly under the moonlight. When the lady looked over, the clothes of the little child wiggled and a 7-colored small snake came out from under her clothes. After which, it laid on the white tender small arm of the child. It hissed and extended its snake's tongue. From this appearance of it, it was surprisingly exactly the same as the 7-colored heaven-swallowing python from back then. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 302. Chapter 1231. Advancement, Do Zun. A black stone tower stood on the top of a mountain in a lonely manner. Wild grass grew on surroundings of the stone tower. These grass represented the change of time. The top of the stone tower was still that same scene that had not changed for a millennium. A young man sat on the stone platform with his eyes tightly shut. A kind of purple-brown flame lingered around his body. The flame burned fiercely and it actually vaguely emitted a kind of great life force. Little fairy doctor's eyes were startled as she looked at the young man in the flame from the side of the stone platform. It was a long while later before she sighed in a quiet manner. It has been a year, have you not awoken? Little fairy doctor softly muttered to herself. An entire year had passed ever since Xiao Yan was shifted over to this place back then. The Falling Star Pavilion had suddenly strengthened rapidly during this 1 year. However, Xiao Yan, whom little fairy doctor was most concerned about, did not wake from his unconscious recuperating state. Initially, Yao Lao and the rest merely thought that it was because Xiao Yan's injuries was too serious. However, this kind of thinking was finally abandoned after Xiao Yan remained unconscious for over half a year. This was because they could sense that the injuries within Xiao Yan's body had currently completely recovered. The situation within his body was even better than his previous peak. Even Yao Lao was unable to understand why Xiao Yan continued to remain unconscious despite having been fully healed. Although their hearts were anxious in the face of such a situation, they were unable to do anything about it. Fortunately, none of them were reckless people. Hence, no one had the impulse of forcefully pulling Xiao Yan from his unconscious state. 1 year quietly flew by like the sand between one's fingers while everyone waited helplessly. Oh! Little fairy doctor looked at the human figure, who had appeared to have turned into a stone, within the stone tower. An expression of grief flashed across her eyes. She gently shook her head and softly said, "Even if it is for Xuan Ur and the child in Kai Lin's womb, you must not continue to sleep like this." These words did not obtain any immediate effect. Little fairy doctor could only sigh in disappointment. She was just about to turn around when her lovely body suddenly stiffened. At that instant earlier, she had clearly saw Xiaoyan's fingers shook a little. This kind of shaking might be extremely slight, but little fairy doctor would definitely not be mistaken, given her eyesight. Quite a number of Falling Star Pavilion's disciples were currently gathered at a training ground near the back mountain for their daily training. A green figure was standing with her hands behind her back at the middle. Her face was somewhat stern and beautiful. The current Mu Qing Luan had some awe to her when compared to the past. Mu Qing Luan's pretty eyes took one look around. She only nodded slightly when she saw that no one was not putting in effort. Immediately, her eyes turned towards the back mountain. She was clearly able to see the black stone tower there. Mu Qing Luan was a little absent-minded as her eyes looked at the stone tower. 1 year ago, Xiaoyan had exchanged blows with a 5-star Do Zun and had broken an arm of the other party. This battle result still caused her to feel some shock even when she recalled about it now. However, the price of such a shocking battle result was also quite great. It had even reached a height that an ordinary person was unable to accept. The back mountain had already been shut for a year. "Big Senior, do you know when it will open again?" Mu Qing Luan recovered when she heard the soft voice that appeared behind her. She turned her head around and took a look. It was actually a couple of young disciples who possessed quite a great reputation within the Falling Star Pavilion. She smiled immediately, shook her head and replied, "It is likely that even teacher is unaware of this matter. I heard that a senior called Xiaoyan is training in the stone tower. It is rumored that he is the direct disciple of the pavilion chief." A female disciple asked in a somewhat curious soft voice. "However, this training period is a little too long. It has been a year, but we have never heard even the slightest activity within the stone tower. Could it be?" A person spoke hesitatingly. "All right, let's not discuss about such matters." Mu Qing Luan knitted her brows slightly and said. Everyone hurriedly ceased their discussions after seeing Mu Qing Luan frowning. It appeared that the latter possessed quite a high prestige and authority within this Falling Star Pavilion. Recently, quite a number of elders has left because of some matters. All of you should not take this opportunity to be lazy. If you fail to pass the year-end test, you will suffer for it. Mu Qing Luan reprimanded. He, big senior sister, you can be rest assured. Additionally, I recently heard that there seems to be some ancient remains appearing in the 10,000 Great Mountains at the southern region's borders of the Central Plains. Could it be that the elders has left because of this matter? A young man, who appeared quite intelligent, curiously inquired. It is a little related. This ancient remains is not an ordinary one. Those factions with some ability in the Central Plains intend to encroach onto it. However, the 10,000 Great Mountains is within the Beast region. That is the territory of the magical beast tribes. Those old shrewd fellows will definitely be unhappy to share this ancient remains with others. Therefore, quite a number of battles will occur when the time comes. Mu Qing Luan spoke without hiding anything since they were all core disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion. Ancient remains. It is rumored that a Tien class Do skill has even surfaced. Whoever could obtain it, tisk. Tien class? I have never seen a Do skill of this level in all my life. Don't daydream, such a treasure will be a hot potato in the hands of anyone. If one does not possess some ability, one will not only be unable to keep the treasure but will end up attracting trouble. Mu Qing Luan rolled her eyes and said. Everyone laughed when they heard these words of Mu Qing Luan. After chatting idly for a while, all of them were preparing to sit down and train when the entire mountain suddenly trembled. The footsteps of quite a number of people staggered a little and they nearly fell. Why? What had happened? This sudden trembling immediately stirred quite a great commotion. All the Falling Star Pavilion's disciples, who were training, hurriedly got up. In an instant, the great chaos and private conversations continued to spread. Mu Qing Luan was also shocked for a moment because of this unexpected change. She immediately cried in a deep voice, "All of you be quiet. There is the pavilion chief and the various elders guarding this place. What can happen? The chaos finally gradually calmed down after hearing Mu Qing Luan's cry. Everyone faced each other and felt that those words were logical. Currently, the Falling Star Pavilion had many experts. Even if this mountain was about to collapse, they would be able to directly reconnect it. Bang! While everyone gradually calmed down, the mountaintop suddenly shook again. This time around, everyone, who had calmed down, immediately discovered the source of the ripple. Hence, numerous gazes were suddenly turned towards the stone tower at the back mountain. It is a ripple that was emitted from that place. Mu Qing Luan looked at the stone tower at the back mountain. Her heart involuntarily leapt. This was the first activity that the stone tower had emitted during this 1 year. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The trembling also attracted the attention of the many experts within the Falling Star Pavilion. Immediately, numerous figures rushed out from various spots. Finally, they were suspended in the midair. Their eyes were shocked and uncertain as they looked towards the back mountain. They could vaguely sense an extremely terrifying aura. It was just like that of a huge slumbering dragon slowly awakening. Kai, two elderly figures also swiftly surfaced in the midair. Their eyes looked at the commotion of the stone tower on the back mountain. Immediately, a wild joy that could not be hidden flashed across their eyes after they sensed the frightening aura. This aura, it's Xiao Yan. This fellow has finally awakened, huh? While the entire Falling Star Pavilion had turned into an uproar because of the activity, an unusual change also gradually appeared within the stone tower. Little Fairy Doctor's eyes were filled with joy and surprise as she looked at the stone platform in front of her from within the stone tower. At this moment, a vast and mighty star strength was continuously seeping out from Xiao Yan's body, which was on the stone platform, in a torrent-like manner. She could sense a family aura slowly awakening while these star strengths spread. Is he finally going to wake up? An excited and joyful expression surfaced on Little Fairy Doctor's face when she sensed this activity. It had been a year. Finally, there was some activity. While Little Fairy Doctor was filled with a wild joy, the purple-brown flame that covered Xiao Yan's body suddenly swelled at this moment. It spread over the entire stone tower. Seeing this scene, Little Fairy Doctor hesitated for a moment before she moved and rushed out from the stone tower. The strength of the 3000 Lotus Heart Flame was extremely strong. Even she was unable to endure for too long. While Little Fairy Doctor was withdrawing from the stone tower, the purple-brown flame that permeated the stone tower suddenly erupted like a volcano. It burst out from the top of the tower, after which, they agglomerated from all directions. Finally, they formed a 1,000 feet large purple-brown dragon. The large dragon meandered and forcefully occupied the place. Its enormous body covered the entire stone tower. A rich dragon's might spread, causing the legs of quite a number of people to weaken. Roar! The enormous dragon was formed. It suddenly roared towards the sky. The sound of the dragon roar spread in a vast and mighty manner. Immediately, everyone saw that the sky became distorted. A starlight pillar that was nearly 1,000 feet large gathered from the night sky in the outside world. After which, it penetrated through the spatial barrier and heavily landed on the body of the meandering large dragon. This vast and mighty star strength completely landed on the body of the enormous dragon. It caused the latter's large body to suddenly emit a wave of bright intense light. Soon after, a vast and mighty aura spread out like floodwaters. Light shot in all directions, causing the eyes of quite a number of people to be shut. A moment later, they finally opened their eyes. After which, they saw a skinny figure slowly appearing at the head of the meandering large dragon. A vast and mighty aura seeped out from within the body of this person. This aura, it's Do Zun. Mu Qing Luan's expression instantly became stunned as she sensed the strength of this vast and mighty aura. A moment later, she inhaled a deep breath of air. Her voice trembled a little as she muttered, "If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Continuing from the previous episode 303. Chapter 1232. Awakening the enormous dragon lingered over the sky. Its vast and mighty dragon might spread over this entire place. Under this intense dragon pressure, even the expressions of some Falling Star Pavilion elders changed slightly. The figures that were suspended in the sky could not help but descend significantly. Is this the senior training within the stone tower? What terrifying strength! This kind of aura. None of the elders within the pavilion could compare with him. This aura should have reached the Do Zun class. Hiss! How unbelievable! This senior is around the same age as us. Yet, he has unexpectedly reached this stage. Waves after waves of private conversations sounded on the mountain after sensing the vast and mighty aura that permeated over the sky. One could still hear a shocked note in these voices. Clearly, it was the first time that they had met such a young elite Dozun. These people were in possession of quite a great talent in order to become the disciples of the Falling Star Pavilion. Their bones possessed some pride. However, such pride appeared to be worthless in front of this senior named Xiao Yan. This fellow, he's really a little too frightening. He had actually directly broke through to the Dozun class. The shock on Mu Qing Luan's face continued for a moment before she gradually recovered her calmness. A bitter laughter was emitted. Her heart was also quite complicated. When she had first met Xiao Yan, the latter's level was a little lower than hers. However, within a short 2 to 3 years, the latter adopted a terrifying soaring pace and directly advanced to the Dozun class. This caused her to feel some doubt about her training talent for the first time. How could she be considered a genius in the face of such an abnormal existence? It is indeed Xiao Yan. Feng Zunjie and Yao Lao stood in the empty air in the sky. Their eyes were fiery hot as they looked at the human figure on the head of the enormous dragon. The former involuntarily cried out joyfully as he did so. Yao Lao smiled and nodded. An excitement also flashed through his eyes. 1 year, this little fellow had finally awakened. Moreover, it seemed that his awakening this time around had brought him quite a great benefit. KK, little fellow is indeed quite blessed. Not only has he truly activated the medicinal strength of the Yin-Yang mysterious dragon pill, but he had even taken the opportunity to break through to the Dozong class. If I guess correctly, he should have accumulated energy during this year and prepared to break through in one attempt. Feng Zunjie laughed. Yes, the amount of energy needed to break through to the Dozun class is too great. If it is not because he had the help of the space meteorite, it is likely that this fellow's breakthrough will be delayed by at least 2 years. Yao Lao smiled. His face contained a pleased expression. Xiao Yan was usually good at grasping opportunities. Currently, he did not give up this great opportunity, choosing to be silent for a year to do so. Finally, at this very moment, he had completely erupted in a shocking manner. While everyone were sighing in surprise within their hearts, the meandering large dragon in the sky continued to remain for over 10 minutes before gradually disappearing. With the scattering of the large dragon, the dragon's might that permeated the place also swiftly weakened. With the complete disappearance of the enormous dragon, that figure in the sky also gradually became clear. At the end, it finally completely appeared in front of everyone's sight. The young human figure in the sky stretched his lazy waist. The skin on his body immediately wiggled at this moment. Those bones in his body emitted numerous bone cracking and rubbing sound, which appeared just like the starting of a complicated mechanical equipment. While Xiao Yan sensed the comfortable feeling that spread within his body, a breath of somewhat hot air followed his throat before being spat out from his mouth. Is this the strength of an elite Dozun? Xiao Yan clenched his hands slightly. He sensed the vast ocean-like Do Qi within his body and involuntarily became absent-minded. This kind of strength possessed an allure that could cause one to become crazy. Countless number of people had spent all their life trying to obtain such strength. Xiao Yan stretched his hand before suddenly clenching it. The space in front of him was actually suddenly distorted into a strange depression. If this clenching occurred on a person's body, even an expert Dozong's body would end up crumbling into a pile of blood and flesh. A smile slowly surfaced on Xiao Yan's face as he sensed this vast and mighty strength that could distort space by just raising one's hand. This stage was so distant and unreachable when he looked at it back then. Now, however, he had truly reached it. If the current Xiao Yan was to meet old ghost Jai Xing again, he might not dare to say that he could kill the latter without unleashing the annihilation lotus flame, but with his strength, that old ghost Jai Xing would not be able to do anything to him. This was the gap between a Dozun and a Dozong. When Xiao Yan was at the 9-star Dozong, he only had the choice to flee when meeting an expert like old ghost Jai Xing. Even if he unleashed the annihilation lotus flame, he would at the very most be able to fight until the both of them were seriously injured. However, once he broke through the Dozong class and entered the level of a Dozun, everything would undergo a drastic change. The current Xiao Yan might not be able to defeat old ghost Jai Xing in an ordinary battle. Similarly, however, he would no longer need much effort to escape from the hands of Old Ghost Jai Xing. Old Ghost Jai Xing, this debt, there will be a time when you have to repay. Xiao Yan's dark black eyes, which had been quiet for a long time, had a faint chillness flashing over it. He must not easily let this old ghost off even if he ended up benefiting from this disaster of being seriously injured. Kai, a rushing wind sound was swiftly transmitted over while a desire to kill surged within Xiao Yan's heart. Immediately, a couple of figures flashed and appeared beside Xiao Yan. You are finally willing to wake up. Feng Zunjie patted heavily on Xiao Yan's shoulders. During this 1 year's time, they had been miserably tortured because of Xiao Yan. Ha ha, thank you old Feng. Xiao Yan smiled and respectfully cupped his hands together towards Feng Zunjie. You should thank your teacher. He has likely not had many good sleeps during this 1 year. Feng Zunjie waved his hand and said. Xiao Yan's eyes turned towards the smiling Yao Lao by the side when he heard this. He looked at the familiar smile that he had not seen for many years and something surged in his heart. For an instant, he was actually unaware of just what he ought to say. Don't listen to this fellow's nonsense. It's good that you have awakened. It's good that you have awakened. Even with Yao Lao's calmness, his heart involuntarily became emotional as he spoke when he watched the face that appeared much more matured compared to back then. Xiao Yan's eyes were a little red as he looked at the laughing Yao Lao. All of his ability were taught by Yao Lao with great effort. If it was not because of Yao Lao, Xiao Yan at the very most become just an expert within the Jia Ma Empire even if his training talent did not disappear. This continent had never lacked any geniuses. It did not matter if he was included or not. It was because of the experience in his youth that had honed Xiao Yan's character. Hence, Yao Lao was an important part that could not be missing for him to be able to possess his achievements today. However, despite Yao Lao putting in a great amount of effort to groom him, he could only merely watch Yao Lao being captured by the Hall of Soul back then without being able to do anything. This kind of helpless feeling was the most torturing form of torture. All right, little fellow, there is no need to think about the matters of the past. The speed of your growth has exceeded my expectations. Looks like the Hall of Soul's act of capturing me had ended up helping you. Yao Lao softly patted Xiao Yan and laughed. Xiao Yan also smiled when he heard this. Although these words were somewhat of a joke, there was indeed some truth to it. Ever since Yao Lao was captured by the Hall of Soul, the motivation for Xiao Yan to train had become incomparably strong. It was also because of this kind of training motivation that enabled Xiao Yan's strength to soar within a short couple of years. Teacher, I have currently already swallowed 3 types of heavenly flames and already possessed sufficient ability to help you refine a body. Xiao Yan swiftly settled down the emotions within his heart. He glanced at Yao Lao's somewhat illusory body before speaking anxiously. Yao Lao's heart was filled with a warm and pleased feeling when he saw the anxious desire on Xiao Yan's face. The heavens had caused him to be blind once. Fortunately, she did not allow him to be blind a second time. The matter of refining a body is not urgent. Although Yao Chen's life was not in danger when he fell into the hands of the Hall of Soul this time around, he had lost quite a lot of essence spiritual qi. Before refining a body, we must first replenish the lost essence spiritual qi. Otherwise, even if he obtained a physical body, his strength will not advance. Feng Zunjie by the side shook his head and said upon hearing this. Essence spiritual qi? Xiao Yan was startled. There is another term for the essence spiritual qi. It is also called essence spiritual strength. The Hall of Soul had captured those spirits because they wished to remove these essence spiritual qi from their bodies. This kind of spiritual qi is the life of a soul. Once the spiritual qi is lost, it would end up causing a great harm to the soul. Feng Zunjie explained. Xiao Yan's expression immediately sunk upon hearing this. He recalled those chains that lingered over all the souls. This thing was actually used to absorb the spiritual qi. How can we replenish the spiritual qi? Xiao Yan asked. Currently, everything was already prepared. He must fulfill Yao Lao's only wish at all cost. The spiritual qi is the foundation of a soul. It is extremely difficult to be altered by external force. Feng Zunjie mused for a moment and replied. However, there are 2 unique things in this world that possess the mysterious effect of repairing spiritual qi. Which 2? Xiao Yan swiftly inquired. The soul baby fruit and the spiritual dragon heavenly fungus. Feng Zunjie slowly replied. As long as we can obtain one of these 2, we will be able to replenish the spiritual qi that Yao Chen had lost. Unfortunately, the rarity of these two types of mysterious items are superior in every way when compared to the heavenly flames. I have only read about them on some ancient books. During this 1 year that you have been unconscious, I have already dispatched the experts from the Falling Star Pavilion to search for information on these two types of mysterious things. However, Feng Zunjie shook his head and sighed softly when he spoke until this point. Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily sunk upon hearing this. It was unexpected that some unexpected incident had occurred now that they were already fully prepared. This damn Hall of Soul. Xiao Yan gritted his teeth. If Yao Lao was unable to replenish the spiritual qi, would that not mean that he will always be unable to possess a body? Is there really no other solutions? Xiao Yan spoke somewhat unwillingly. Feng Zunjie was silent. Xiao Yan's fist was involuntarily clenched tightly when he saw this matter of Feng Zunjie. While the few of them were quiet, an elder at the side hesitated for a moment before suddenly speaking softly. Pavilion Chief Feng, the soul baby fruit, one of the two mysterious items that you have mentioned. It is rumored that it is in the ancient remains that had caused an uproar recently. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 304. Chapter 1233. Ancient Remains, Ancient Remains? Xiao Yan was initially startled when he heard this. Immediately, his eyes turned abruptly towards the elder who had spoken and hurriedly said, "Is there news of the soul baby fruit? Where did you obtain this news from?" Feng Zunjie was also a little stunned as he looked at that elder. From the looks of this manner of his, it seemed that he was unaware of this matter. That elder smiled and explained, "Pavilion Chief Feng, I have been responsible for the matter regarding the ancient remains recently. Based on the information that had been sent back, there are some magical beast tribes that had attempted to barge into the ancient remains but end up miserably pulling back. However, from what those who had fled said, that remains possess a kind of mysterious thing that is extremely similar to the appearance of the soul baby fruit. I guess that thing should likely be the soul baby fruit. The soul baby fruit is indeed something from the ancient times. It is not too surprising for it to appear in the ancient remains." Feng Zunjie was a little excited. He rubbed his hands together and said, "Xiao Yan, you are really a lucky star. We have no result despite searching for a year. Yet, such a good news has been delivered to us the moment you have come out. Don't be happy too early." Yao Lao was not as optimistic as Feng Zunjie. He voiced his thoughts. Currently, this ancient remains has attracted quite a number of experts and factions from the continent. Moreover, that place is within the beast region. It is not an easy matter to take out such a treasure from within it. Back then, the last ancient remains had ended up being flooded with blood. No one knew just how many Dozong's or Dozun's experts had died there. Feng Zunjie's expression became a little solemn when he heard this. He had experienced the ancient remains battle back then and naturally knew just how intense and cruel that kind of battle was. Just what is the matter regarding this ancient remains? Xiao Yan saw the two people frowning in deep thought and could not resist asking. Let's get down before we talk about it. Quite a number of things had occurred in the Central Plains during this 1 year that you were unconscious. Feng Zunjie's eyes looked around him. After which, he exchanged glances with Yao Lao. He beckoned his hands towards Xiao Yan and the group rushed down from the tall sky in front of the countless number of eyes before entering the large hall of the Falling Star Pavilion. The group separated and took their seats after having entered the large hall. Xiao Yan smiled towards little fairy doctor, who had closely followed behind him. After which, his eyes turned towards Feng Zunjie. The latter also smiled upon seeing this. After sipping some fragrant tea, he arranged his thoughts before slowly speaking. The ancient remains, as the name suggests, is naturally the things that had been passed down from the ancient times. Those that could still leave some remains after so many years meant that the owner of the remains was not an ordinary person. From how the remains that had appeared in the breast region looks complete, its owner might be a Do Shen class peak expert. A seriousness flashed across Xiao Yan's eyes when he heard this. Do Sheng, this was basically an existence that was near the peak of this world. Now that they had broken through to the Dozun, he could increasingly sense how terrifying this level was. The things left behind by an expert Do Sheng undoubtedly possessed an allure that could not be resisted. The ancient times is a completely different era from now. There would naturally be many remains left behind during the countless number of years. Some remains might have been buried or disappeared in time. However, there would also be some which would suddenly be revealed, like the ancient remains that is discovered this time around. Each time the ancient remains appears, it would bring about a bloody storm. You should be aware of just how attractive the things that are left behind by an elite Do Sheng are. It is sufficient to cause one to become crazy over it. Feng Zunjie smiled and said, "The flame mantra that you practice is something that Yao Chen and I had underwent a bloody battle back then in order to successfully bring out from the remains that had appeared back then." Xiao Yan quietly nodded. He had heard Yao Lao mention that the process of obtaining the flame mantra was quite difficult. The ancient remains this time around is likely even more troublesome than the last one that we had participated in. This is because it had appeared within the Beast region. That is the territory of the magical beast tribes. Beast region. Xiao Yan knitted his brows slightly. He had heard a little of this area. That place was completely the territories of the magical beasts tribes. Although there were also humans roaming around there, those magical beasts that had formed a tribe usually possessed extremely xenophobic thoughts. This time around, the ancient remains had appeared on their territory. Given their characters, they would definitely be unhappy for the human experts to come and take a share. It is indeed quite troublesome. Xiao Yan gently nodded. Those magical beast tribes were extremely troublesome to deal with. It was to the point of causing many experts to feel a headache. "Oh, we have dispatched the experts from the Falling Star Pavilion to pay more attention the moment the ancient remains appear. Originally, we did not intend to get involved in this messy business. For us, who had experienced the competition from the last remains, we clearly understand just how cruel it will be. If the Falling Star Pavilion ends up getting involved in it, it will definitely bring about quite a great trouble." Feng Zunjie sighed and said, "The current Falling Star Pavilion has basically already been included in the Hall of Souls blacklist. We must always be cautious of time. If we end up suffering a serious blow now, they will definitely beat us when we are down and eliminate us in passing. Now, Yao Chen has yet to recover his strength. Therefore, he is unable to leave. Without the help of this kind of expert, we will be unable to get entangled with the Hall of Soul." Xiao Yan nodded slightly. The Falling Star Pavilion might be one of the 4 great pavilions in name, but there was still too much of a gap between it and the Hall of Soul, an old faction that had existed for an extremely long time. However, they had found the soul baby fruit within that ancient remains. In this way, they had no choice but to get involved in this messy business. Feng Zunjie changed his tone and spoke in a deep voice. The soul baby fruit was exceptionally important. It was related to whether Yao Chen would be able to regain his peak strength. If they were really able to obtain it, the strength of the Falling Star Pavilion will undoubtedly soar immediately. At that time, with someone like Yao Chen present, even the Hall of Soul will not dare to easily do any random action. Therefore, regardless of how great of a risk it was, they must do their best to help Yao Chen recover to his peak. Currently, the Falling Star Pavilion is enemies with the Hall of Soul. This place is the headquarters of the Falling Star Pavilion and it must have experts present. Therefore, Old Feng is unable to make this trip to the ancient remains. Xiao Yan's finger gently knocked onto the surface of the table and said, "As for teacher, this place possessed the great falling star formation. It will be very safe for you to remain here. Hence, as a precaution, you can only remain here. After counting in this manner, this ancient remains can only be left to me. I will try my best to bring the soul baby fruit back. Moreover, I am also quite interested in this ancient remains." Xiao Yan laughed softly. "It's too dangerous. You do not understand just how cruel the fight within this kind of ancient remains is. You still need to rescue your father. Nothing must go wrong with you." Yao Lao shook his head slowly and said, "Teacher, even if the current me ends up meeting an expert of the strength of old ghost Jai Xing, I will also be able to withdraw safely. Relax, I am aware of my limits." Xiao Yan smiled. He did not wait for Yao Lao to continue speaking before turning his eyes towards Feng Zunjie and said, "Old Feng, please help me prepare a detailed map of the beast region. Leave the matter of the soul baby fruit to me." Feng Zunjie glanced at Yao Lao, who was frowning tightly by the side. He immediately nodded gently and said, "Although I am also very worried, you are indeed currently the best person for this. In order to allow Yao Chen to swiftly recover his peak strength, we can only trouble you this time around. I will settle the map for you as soon as possible. Additionally, Bring Qing Luan with you when you leave. Her clan is also within the Beast region. They might be able to provide a little help when the time comes. Xiao Yan smilingly nodded. He did not reject this good intention of Feng Zunjie. Yao Lao widened his mouth when he saw these two people swiftly making a decision. Immediately, he could only sigh helplessly. He looked at Xiao Yan and softly said, "Since you insist, teacher shall also not try to advise you against it. You should be careful along the way. If you end up meeting with any dangerous situation, you should withdraw immediately. Remember, in my heart, recovering my strength is not as important as you. It is not easy to find a disciple like you." Xiao Yan rubbed his head and laughingly nodded. After subsequently confirming their route, Xiao Yan did not hurriedly set off. This matter was related to whether Yao Lao could completely recover his strength. Hence, nothing must go wrong with it. Therefore, the various intelligence must be complete. As the saying went, if one sharpened one's axe, one would need less effort which chopping wood. If the information was complete, everything would be done extremely smoothly. During these few days, Xiao Yan was also given a Falling Star Pavilion Elder title. Currently, Yao Lao was the pavilion chief of the Falling Star Pavilion. Being his disciple, Xiao Yan could naturally also be considered a member of the Falling Star Pavilion. Some commotion was also stirred in the Falling Star Pavilion in the face of such a young elder. However, no one voiced any objections. The earth-shaking atmosphere that Xiao Yan had emitted when he broke out from the tower had already allowed everyone to understand that his strength, it was more than sufficient for him to seat on this elder's spot. After this rest continued for 3 days or so, the information related to the ancient remains had also been fully gathered by Xiao Yan. He was aware that it was time to begin traveling to the Beast region. When the sun surfaced in the sky on the morning of the 3rd day, the disciples from the Falling Star Pavilion undergoing morning training turned their eyes towards the sky. There were a couple of figures standing in the air there. A breeze blew over the place and the clothes of these people fluttered, causing them to appear to possess an extraordinary demeanor. "Xiao Yan, you should remember to be more careful on this trip. Quickly withdraw if you meet with any trouble." Feng Zunjie looked at the group that was ready to leave and spoke in a deep voice. Xiao Yan smiled and nodded. His eyes turned towards Yao Chen beside Feng Zunjie and inhaled a deep breath. After which, he cupped his hands towards Yao Chen and said, "Teacher, take care. This disciple will definitely bring back the soul baby fruit for your elderly self." After uttering these words, Xiao Yan ceased hesitating any longer. He waved his hand and suddenly turned around. After which, his body moved and swiftly rushed towards the exit. In the blink of an eye, the entire group had disappeared from everyone's eyes. "Old fellow, you have found quite a good disciple," Feng Zunjie slowly commented as he looked in the direction that Xiao Yan had disappeared towards. Yao Lao nodded gently before laughing out loud. "There is no regret in my life by being able to obtain this disciple. My choice back then was ultimately a correct gamble. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible." Continuing from the previous episode 305. Chapter 1234. Beast Region. The azure sky was clear within thousands of kilometers. The sky appeared to be just an enormous blue mirror that was incomparably clear. "Ow!" A crane cry was suddenly transmitted from the quiet sky. Immediately, a white figure rushed over from the distant sky. It was accompanied by a wild wind that whistled past the sky. Only when one was close could one see that the white figure was a snow-white giant crane. A couple of figures were seated on its spacious back. It was surprisingly Xiao Yan's group, which had left the Falling Star Pavilion. This trip to the Beast region would definitely not be a smooth one. There were too many experts being attracted by the ancient remains. It was not an easy matter if one wished to obtain the things one needed in this place. Hence, Xiao Yan had brought little fairy doctor, Zi Yan, Tianhuo Zunjie and Shangzan with him on this trip. This lineup, along with Xiao Yan's current strength, was already very strong. Although it was unable to move unhindered within the Beast region, it was not one that anyone would dare to come and offend. "Oh, what fun is there in the Beast region? Why are we going there?" Zi Yan had some complaints over the destination of this trip. She continued to mutter in this manner all the way. However, Xiao Yan merely smiled in the face of this. He was aware that Zi Yan had most likely head to the so-called Beast region during this period where she was missing. That was the place where most magical beast tribe in the Do Chi continent gathered. Although the ancient void dragon was extremely mysterious, it was likely that there would be some similar bloodline linking all of them, which possessed some bloodline connection. Therefore, Ziyan would follow this feeling of hers and head to the beast region. Little fairy doctor also smiled slightly when she heard Ziyan's muttering. Xiao Yan had successfully awakened and his injuries had completely healed. This caused her to become completely relaxed. Her usually tensed face had also become much more relaxed. "Oh, stop muttering." Xiao Yan smiled and shook his head. He tossed a small jade bottle towards Ziyan. The latter received it and took a look. Only then did some joy appear at the tip of her brows. She poured the yaoan inside into her mouth as though they were beans before chewing for a long while. Only then did she laugh. That place is not as nice to muddle in as the Central Plains. Since the ancient remains has currently appeared in the beast region, you will need to make the preparations for a bloody battle if you intend to obtain anything from it. Qing Luan, tell us about the faction distribution within the beast region. It will allow us to be prepared beforehand and become aware of just who we can offend and who we should not. Xiao Yan ignored Ziyan. He turned his eyes towards Mu Qing Luan, who was seated by the side, and smilingly asked. Mu Qing Luan raised his eyes upon hearing this. Her eyes still contained a complicated expression as she looked at Xiao Yan. Who could have imagined that this fellow would actually directly break through to the Do Zoom class after experiencing a serious injury? This level was one that she had dreamed of. The beast region has gathered nearly 70% of the magical beast clan. That place is the world of the magical beast. It includes the 3 great tribes of the magical beast world, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe, the 9 serene deep ground python and the ancient void dragon. Mu Qing Luan stared at Xiao Yan when she mentioned the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. She softly said, "You should be a little more careful. The Heaven Phoenix tribe is extremely sensitive to the Heaven Phoenix essence blood. You were able to hide from Feng Qing'er back then because she was not strong. However, if you meet the experts from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe in the beast region, it will be very difficult to hide it. The Heaven Demon Phoenix is one of the 3 great tribes in the magical beast world. There are many experts within the tribe and it is extremely frightening. Even though you have currently already advanced to the Do Zoom class, you can only pull back in the face of such a frightening faction. Therefore, it is best that you think of a way to get rid of the Heaven Demon Phoenix essence on you before you enter the beast region." Mu Qing Luan spoke seriously. Xiao Yan fondled his chin. There was no need to talk about the terrifying strength of the Heaven Demon Phoenix given that it was able to become one of the 3 great tribes of the magical beast world. If there was no special circumstances, Xiao Yan did not wish to be enemies with them. "Kai, the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe is nothing. Xiao Yan, you need not be afraid. With me around, I will let them all be unable to return if they dare to come." Upon hearing this, Ziyan, who was chewing happily by the side, immediately curled her lips, patted her small chest and said. Mu Qing Luan was stunned as she glanced at Ziyan. She was not certain about the latter's status. However, from the manner in which Feng Zun Jie and the rest treated her, it seemed that the background of this little girl was strong. However, regardless of how strong her background was, these words were a little boastful. By being able to become one of the 3 great tribes of the magical beast world, there were hardly any person or faction who would dare utter such words to the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe. Mu Qing Luan did not think that this little girl in front of her possessed such an ability. Xiao Yan glanced at Ziyan and involuntarily shook her head. Although this girl was an ancient void dragon, she was still too young. She might be quite strong, but it was far from the point of being able to frighten the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe with just her name. "Relax, I will think of a solution regarding the Demon Phoenix blood." Xiao Yan turned his eyes towards Qing Luan and smilingly said, "It is good that you have the confidence. You should be aware of the seriousness of this matter. Offending the Heaven Demon Phoenix in the Beast region is equivalent to offending a faction like the Pill Tower in the Central Plains. It will be extremely troublesome." Mu Qing Luan nodded and softly said, "The subsidiary relationship in the Beast region is extremely strong. A powerful tribe will possess many subsidiary tribes. These subsidiary tribes view the main tribe as the leader. There are many implications in these relationship. If one wished to discuss about it, it is even more complicated than the main sect and branch sect in the human world. The tribe that I come from is the Green Mythical Bird tribe. Although we cannot be compared to the Heaven Demon Phoenix, we also possess some reputation within the Beast region. There are nearly 10 subsidiary tribes under my tribe. The combination of the experts from these tribes will be quite strong. There was some surprise in Xiao Yan's eyes. The uniqueness of this region had created a unique style. Although the human world also possessed this kind of subsidiary relationship, it was far from having developed into such an intertwined manner. A human heart was at times far more complicated than that of a beast. The one with the most subsidiary tribes within the beast region is the 9 serene deep-ground python tribe. Their numbers is the largest amongst the 3 great tribes. Of course, the result of gaining in numbers was that the bloodline of the current 9 serene deep-ground python is becoming increasingly impure. Mu Qing Luan spread her hands and said, "The Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe has an extremely harsh management of its bloodline. Even the dead Heaven Demon Phoenix must be buried within the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe forbidden ground. Any outsider who obtained the corpse or other parts of the Heaven Demon Phoenix only have 2 choices. One was to take the initiative to hand it over, while the second was to be chased after by them with killing intent." Mu Qing Luan looked at Xiao Yan with a deeper meaning in her eyes when she spoke until this point. It appeared as though she was issuing him a reminder. As for the most mysterious ancient void dragon, I have not heard about them having any subsidiary tribes. Of course, this should likely be because they are not interested. Otherwise, there will be quite a number of powerful tribes willingly joining them. A faint respectful expression flashed across Mu Qing Luan's face when mentioning the ancient void dragon. The ancient void dragon was different from the Heaven Demon Phoenix tribe or the 9 serene deep-ground python, which had climbed up slowly. It originated from the ancient times and was worthy of being the ultimate being of all beasts. Since the ancient times, they had always been the top existence within the magical beast world. Ziyan widened her mouth and poured the final yaoan into her mouth. She chewed a couple of times before patting her little stomach in a satisfied manner. She casually said, "The Heaven Demon Phoenix is not as strong as you have described. There are similarly some beasts that keeps an extremely low profile within the magical beast world. Moreover, all of them possess a bloodline from the ancient times. These tribes might not possess a large number, but they are also quite powerful. If their own ancestor was still around, they might still possess the qualification to say such words. Unfortunately, the true ancient Heaven Phoenix has already ceased to exist in this world. Moreover, it is not that the ancient void dragon does not have any subsidiary tribes, but it is just that you are unaware of them." Mu Qing Luan widened her mouth slightly upon hearing these words of Ziyan. The ancient Heaven Phoenix. This name that originated from the ancient times was something that she had occasionally read about in the old books within the tribe. It is rumored that this Heaven Phoenix was a peak existence that could be compared with the strongest magical beast, the ancient void dragon, during the ancient times. However, she did not expect that this secret name from the ancient times would actually be spoken from the mouth of this little girl. My green mythical bird tribe is also a tribe that possessed some reputation. If the ancient void dragon possessed some subsidiary tribes, how could I not know about such an important matter? Although she vaguely thought that Ziyan might be right, Mu Qing Luan was still a little unwilling to be taught a lesson by a little girl. Hence, he immediately retorted, "Green mythical bird tribe?" Ziyan raised her thin brows. Her eyes were a little strange as she looked at Mu Qing Luan. After which, she let out a laughter and actually ceased to continue speaking. "You." Mu Qing Luan felt a little furious when she saw this manner of Ziyan. Xiao Yan by the side hurriedly stopped her. The appearance of the ancient remains this time around is located at the Beast Bone Mountain Range in the Beast region. That place can be considered the territory of the 9 serene deep-ground python. It is rumored that there is the existence of a Tien-class Do skill there. It is likely that the experts from the 9 serene deep-ground python will also intervene. At that time, the fight will definitely be extremely intense. All of you should try to be careful. We should swiftly leave once we have obtained the soul baby fruit." Mu Qing Luan gently inhaled a breath of air. She gritted her teeth and looked at the unconcerned face of Ziyan before speaking with some fury. After which, she directly sat down and shut her eyes. Clearly, she was greatly angered by Ziyan. Xiao Yan could only spread his hands helplessly in the face of this scene. After which, he glared ruthlessly at Ziyan. Yet, the latter directly ignored him. She stretched her lazy waist before using Shangzan beside her as a backrest and swiftly fell into a deep sleep. Due to the aggressive atmosphere between Mu Qing Luan and Ziyan, the remaining journey became quite oppressive. Fortunately, this kind of depressing feeling continued for around 4 days before it was broken by the vast mountain range that appeared at the edge of one's sight. That place was the Beast region, a unique area where the magical beast tribes ruled. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible. Continuing from the previous episode 306. Chapter 1235. Bone Mountain Range. The size of the Beast region might not be comparable to the Central Plains, but it was not something that could be slight. That stacking mountain range that extended endlessly was sufficient to allow one to feel the different wild atmosphere of this Beast region. Although the Beast region is known for its 100,000 large mountains, this was merely a rough estimate. If one was to really count them, it would definitely far exceed this number. These mountains spread into the distance where a human strength could not reach. Following the flow of time, countless of treasures had also been left behind in this endless mountain range, waiting for someone with the affinity to open them. The ancient remains had appeared in the Bone Mountain range of the Beast region this time around. It was quite renowned within the Beast region. This was because this mountain range possessed a sea of bones that caused one to be stunned. Countless number of beast bones were thrown in this place. These beast bones would gradually unleash some of the unique beast strength within them following the flow of time. This kind of energy was not much use to a human, but it was not a bad nourishment for a magical beast. Hence, it had resulted in this Bone Mountain range to become a spot where many magical beasts liked to gather. The Bone Mountain range was located at the southwestern part of the Beast region. Due to them being afraid that the soul baby fruit would be obtained by others first, Xiao Yan's group had hurried towards the Bone Mountain range without stopping once they entered the Beast region. The current Beast region had undoubtedly become lively because of the appearance of the ancient remains. During Xiao Yan's group journey towards the Bone Mountain range, they saw quite a number of experts, who obviously had the same destination as them. Amongst these experts were magical beasts that could take the human form, as well as some human experts who had hurried over from outside the Beast region after hearing the news. Clearly, word of the ancient remains appearing had already spread. Xiao Yan involuntarily frowned upon seeing this scene. It was unexpected that the allure of the ancient remains would actually be this great. These lone experts were still alright. The only thing Xiao Yan was worried about was some large factions coming as a group. Things would be a little troublesome if that was the case. It is rumored that there is the existence of a Tien-class Do technique in this ancient remains. It is likely that those large factions will be after that thing even if they come. Our target is only the soul baby fruit. If things are not right when the time comes, we will take the soul baby fruit and leave. It is not good to step onto this muddy water. Xiao Yan's face had an expression of deep thought while he looked at the mountain range that swiftly moved backwards from under him. This did not mean that he was uninterested in the Tien-class Do technique. Honestly speaking, even he had never seen just what a Tien-class Do technique looked like until now. It was a lie if he said he was not curious. However, he understood the importance of various matters. Currently, the most important thing was to help Yao Lao recover his peak strength. Otherwise, the gap between the Falling Star Pavilion and the Hall of Soul would be a little too big. If the Hall of Soul managed to completely grasp them and attack, the Falling Star Pavilion would be finished. Of course, if the situation did not exceed his expectations after having obtained the soul baby fruit, Xiao Yan could quietly think of doing something else. Tien-class Do technique. This Do technique that existed in the legends would likely possess a strength that was comparable to Xiao Yan's Annihilation Fire Lotus. After traveling for 2 continuous days in the continuous mountain range of the enormous Beast region, a glaring dense white color suddenly appeared in the distance. This wisp of dense white color appeared out of place within the lush green mountain range. However, an excitement surged into the eyes of Xiao Yan's group when they saw it. After nearly 10 days of traveling, they had finally reached their destination. The number of people flying across the surrounding sky increased when they arrived at this place. Occasionally, there would be a figure flying across like a storm. Finally, it would rush towards the distant dense white mountain range. We are arriving at the Bone Mountain range. There are 2 elders from the Falling Star Pavilion investigating here. We should meet up with them first and discuss the subsequent matters. What do you say? Mu Qing Luan's expression had become much more solemn as she looked at the dense white mountain range in the distant. Even at such a great distance, she could still sense quite a number of unusually strong aura. Yes. Xiao Yan nodded slightly. Currently, this Bone Mountain range was truly a chaotic place. Experts from various factions were gathered at this place. If they were to charge in without being aware of the situation, they might end up becoming the target of everyone. Mu Qing Luan took out an old jade from her storage ring after seeing Xiao Yan nodding. After which, she gently shattered it. Soon after the old jade was shattered, a figure swiftly rushed over from the distant mountain range. After which, it headed towards Xiao Yan's group. A moment later, it had appeared above the large eagle. The figure clearly sighed in relief when he saw Xiao Yan's group. The one who had arrived was an old man in gray robes. He wore an elder badge of the Falling Star Pavilion on his chest. However, this old man appeared a little miserable looking at this moment. It was as though he had just exchanged blows with someone. Elder who? What happened? Where is Elder Qi? Mu Qing Luan asked in a startled manner when she saw the appearance of this old man. Oh! The old man who was called Elder Hu laughed bitterly and immediately spoke with some anger. Elder Qi and I have come to the Bone Mountain Range to investigate its situation on the orders of the two pavilion chiefs. Currently, quite a number of powerful factions and experts had come to this Bone Mountain Range. Everyone has found a spot to settle down within this mountain range and wait for the ancient remains to completely open. Elder Qi's and my luck are not bad. We found a mountain top that is near the ancient remains. That place could observe the activity of the remains in the quickest possible time. However, the two of us has just led some Falling Star Pavilion's disciples to build a camp there when we met the people from the Wind Lightning Pavilion. Wind Lightning Pavilion? Xiao Yan raised his brows slightly. It was indeed an old enemy. They actually dared to attack? Mu Qing Luan's face sunk slightly. Some fury rose within her eyes. The current Wind Lightning Pavilion is becoming increasingly arrogant by relying on its good terms with the Heaven Phoenix tribe. Oh, there is no choice. This time around, even Lei Zun Jie from the Wind Lightning Pavilion has personally come. The two of us has yet to even reason it out with him when we were directly thrust aside. In his fury, Elder Qi also ended up being injured by the experts from the Wind Lightning Pavilion. Currently, some disciples are taking care of him and he is unable to move. Therefore, only I can come and receive you. Elder Hu sighed. Although he spoke in this manner, his face had some dissatisfaction. Clearly, the overbearing manner of the Wind Lightning Pavilion had caused him to be quite furious. Mu Qing Luan frowned tightly. Suddenly, she turned her head and looked at Xiao Yan. She softly said, "Teacher has said that you will be in charge of everything in this trip." Elder Hu's eyes turned towards Xiao Yan upon hearing these words of Mu Qing Luan. He cupped his hands together respectfully and said, "You must be the personal disciple of the Pavilion Chief, Junior Chief Xiao Yan, right?" KK, the old Mi Hu Fu, greets Junior Chief. Elder Hu Fu is too courteous. Just call me Xiao Yan. I am unworthy of the title Junior Chief. Xiao Yan smiled and waved his hand. He glanced at Mu Qing Luan, who was staring intently at him from behind. After thinking for a moment, he said, "Let's go and see Elder Qi first." KK, I will lead the way. Elder Hu nodded, turned around and led the way. Hey, Xiao Yan, what should we do about this? The Wind Lightning Pavilion has completely not give the Falling Star Pavilion any face. If we do not do anything, it is likely that we will end up being a joke of others. Mu Qing Luan softly said as she looked at Elder Hu, who was leading them in front. Xiao Yan smiled faintly but did not say anything. However, upon seeing this smile of his, Mu Qing Luan felt a little calm in her heart. Ever since she had become acquainted with Xiao Yan, she had never seen Xiao Yan suffer any loss. Even when he ended up suffering a serious injury and ended up unconscious for a year, Xiao Yan had also got a 5-star dozun to pay an arm as a price. Everyone followed Elder Hu to shuttle through the vast mountain range. Currently, this mountain range had already been occupied by a densely packed sea of people. It was noisy all day long, causing this originally quiet mountain range to become just like a marketplace. Various confusing noise surged over from all directions. This sea of people did not lack some powerful aura that caused even Xiao Yan to glance sideways. It seemed that the ancient remains this time around had indeed attracted quite a number of true experts. The group had shuttled through the mountain range for quite a while before finally coming to a stop at a remote small hill. At this moment, there were 20 over Falling Star Pavilion disciples guarding this hill. However, they currently appeared quite depressed and furious. Clearly, This was caused by the Wind Lightning Pavilion chasing them out from their camp without giving them any face. The return of Elder Wu caused everyone's attention to be braced. When they saw Mu Qing Luan's group, all of their morale was finally lifted a little. Quite a number of eyes paused on Xiao Yan. They had long since heard of this personal disciple of the pavilion chief, who had undertaken a retreat in the stone tower for a year. Cough, Junior Chief, please forgive me for being unable to receive your arrival. A somewhat pale-looking red-clothed elder walked out from the tent with the support of 2 Falling Star Pavilion's disciples after Xiao Yan's group had landed. He cupped his hands together towards Xiao Yan's group and spoke respectfully. Cough. This elder Qi could not resist coughing intensely after his voice had just sounded. Some traces of blood appeared on the corner of his mouth. Clearly, his internal organs were injured. Damn it, those bastards from the Wind Lightning Pavilion. Our main force of the Falling Star Pavilion did not come. Otherwise, they will not have any opportunity to be arrogant. The fury within the hearts of those surrounding Falling Star Pavilion's disciples rose when they saw this injury of Elder Qi. Xiao Yan slowly walked towards Elder Qi's side. He grabbed the latter's hand and briefly examined his injuries. After which, he nodded slightly and said, "Your injuries are quite serious." "Who has attacked you?" "The Northern Pavilion Chief of the Wind Lightning Pavilion, Fei Tian." Elder Qi sighed. Xiao Yan was startled when he heard this. He immediately laughed softly. He had not met this Northern Pavilion Chief Lei Tian for 2 to 3 years, yet the latter was still as overbearing as ever. Xiao Yan took out a medicinal pill from his storage ring and handed it to Elder Qi. He stretched his lazy waist and said, "How many Do Zuns does the Wind Lightning Pavilion have?" "Just Lei Zun J alone." Xiao Yan nodded slightly, after which, he slowly turned around in front of everyone's eyes. "Junior Chief, you are?" Elder Hu was startled upon seeing this. He hurriedly asked, "Let's go. It's time to destroy their place." The faint voice that was being transmitted over caused the blood within the bodies of those Falling Star Pavilion's disciples present to boil instantly. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know so we can fix it as soon as possible.